Their first encounter, Adrian Sterling, his voice cool, stated, "Go write a self-criticism." Bella Harper, undeterred, shot back, "Professor Sterling, did you buy your title?" Adrien was momentarily speechless. Their second encounter, Bella questioned, "Professor Sterling, why do you continually reject me?" Adrien calmly replied, "It seems your literary comprehension needs improvement." Bella was silenced. Their third encounter, Bella declared, "Professor Sterling, I can go home by myself." Adrien responded, "Aren't I your boyfriend?" Bella was, once again, speechless. Bella Harper, "I'm sorry. I don't like you." With that, Adrien turned and walked away without a backward glance. "Hey, wait!" Bella called out, but he was already gone. She slumped onto a bench, dejected. 11, she muttered, wondering why finding a boyfriend was so difficult for her. Everyone else seemed to manage it effortlessly. She pulled out a compact mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. What was it about her face that wasn't appealing? She was the campus beauty at Norton University. She should have suitors lining up. Her phone rang. It was Chloe, her best friend. She answered, her voice flat. "Hello? Bella, where are you?" "Date." A squeal echoed through the phone. "With who?" "Finally." "Where?" "I'm coming." "Bella? Hello?" It failed. Silence on the other end. Bella rolled her eyes. "Chloe." Here. "Why did you call?" "Oh, right. Big news. Our department has a new professor. Total hottie. And he's a surgeon, fresh back from studying abroad. Irresistible." Chloe's voice vibrated with excitement. "What about Professor Davies?" Bella asked, referring to the older professor she affectionately called Old Boy for his youthful enthusiasm. "Rumor has it, he's retiring." So, Old Boy is irrelevant. But the new professor, he might be relevant to you." "What do you mean?" "A little friendly advice from your BFF, look beyond the undergrads. Sometimes, broadening your horizons yields unexpected results." Intrigued, Bella frowned. "Stop being cryptic. Spill it. Try for Professor Sterling. Brains, beauty, the whole package. He's only 6 years older than us, perfect age gap, and he's already a big deal in the medical world. Snag him, and your thesis, your job prospects." Chloe's voice trailed off suggestively. "If he's so great, why don't you go for him?" Bella felt deflated, her confidence at an all-time low. Chloe hesitated. "I'd love to, but he might not be interested in me. Men like pretty girls, you know?" Bella's face fell. "Chloe, seriously? Way to rub it in." "Haha, sorry, Bella. Bye." Bella hung up, feeling worse. Other department beauties had guys falling at their feet. She was alone. It wasn't that she needed a boyfriend, but the comparison stung. She wanted the attention, the validation, the experience of being pursued, not constantly overlooked. The lecture hall, seating hundreds, was unusually quiet. The man at the podium spoke with measured cadence, his voice deep and resonant. Bella, tucked away in the back corner, hung on to his every word, a dreamy expression on her face. She was captivated. Suddenly, his gaze swept across the room, landing on her. Bella froze, their eyes locking for a brief moment. Heat flooded her cheeks, and she quickly looked down. She heard him call a name. Her heart leaped. She stood up abruptly, meeting his gaze. "Chloe?" Adrian Sterling frowned, a question in his voice. A nudge on her arm. She looked down. The boy next to her whispered, "He's calling Chloe, not you." Bella froze, then turned to see Chloe, sound asleep at her desk. She nudged her gently. Chloe's eyes fluttered open, still hazy with sleep. "Bella, what?" "He's calling you." Bella's voice was barely a whisper. Ugh, Chloe mumbled, her mind still foggy. Do you have a crush on him or something? Every head in the lecture hall swiveled towards Chloe. Bella wanted to disappear. 2 hours later, Chloe emerged from Adrian's office, her cheeks puffed out in a sulk. Bella, waiting in the hallway, rushed over. Chloe, what happened? Did he yell at you? Chloe grumbled, prematurely grumpy, bossy. Bella's eyes widened. Really? He seemed so nice. Chloe's eyes twinkled mischievously. Oh, and he wants to see you. What? Minutes later, Bella stood outside Adrian's half-open door, hesitating. Chloe gestured frantically for her to go in. Taking a deep breath, Bella knocked. Enter. Her heart skipped a beat at the sound of his voice. Professor Sterling, she began nervously. Adrien looked up from the papers he was reading. Yes? Didn't you ask for me? Bella faltered. Adrien frowned. Yes. Bella waited, but he simply returned to his papers. Professor? You can go. He glanced at his watch. What? She was utterly confused. You're excused after 5 minutes. Next time, the consequences will be more severe. He looked at her, his expression neutral. Excused? For what? She hadn't been sleeping in class like Chloe, or failing exams like some students. She frowned, determined to get an explanation. She looked up at him, meeting his gaze. He was even more handsome up close. She stared, momentarily mesmerized, then saw a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Go write a self-criticism. He returned to his papers. Bella stared, then whispered, Is he an alien? Or am I? I don't understand anything. Still here? Adrian's voice was mild. Professor Sterling, can I ask you something? She blinked, feigning innocence. Yes. Did you buy your professorship? Adrien stopped reading, his brow furrowing. Oh, you don't have to answer, Bella said quickly, noticing his displeasure. Why would you ask such a thing? Just curious. She looked down. Adrien leaned back in his chair, studying her. You and Chloe are close. Bella nodded. One a top student, the other, he paused. How did you two become friends? He sounded genuinely curious. Bella bristled. Professor Sterling, that sounds prejudiced. Adrien paused. You may leave. Confused, Bella left his office. Chloe was gone. She headed back to her dorm. Saturday morning, Bella was asleep when her phone rang. She pulled the covers over her head, then sat up with a groan, grabbing the phone. Chloe, she growled, her eyes still closed. Bella, did you finish the self-criticism? Can I copy it? Chloe's voice was pleading. Bella's mind went blank. Self-criticism? Yeah, the one Sterling assigned. I didn't write it. She'd completely forgotten about it. She hadn't done anything wrong. Why should she write one? What? Anything else? I'm going back to sleep. Bella hung up, threw the phone aside, and burrowed back under the covers. After a few minutes, she sat up again, a mischievous glint in her eye. Self-criticism? She'd write one all right. A very special one. Monday morning, Bella arrived at the lecture hall, 10 minutes early. Chloe, already there, waved her over. Switch seats, Bella said as she approached. Chloe always sat in the back so she could doze off undetected and copy Bella's notes later. Why? Chloe asked. To sleep, Bella replied simply. Chloe stared at her, speechless. A few minutes later, Adrien entered. He scanned the room, his gaze lingering on the two girls in the back, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. He opened his textbook, then closed it again. This time, Bella didn't even pretend to listen. She laid her head down on her desk and closed her eyes. Chloe, determined to be good, sat up straight and took notes. But soon, her eyelids began to droop. She glanced at Bella, then looked up, meeting Adrian's gaze. She snapped awake, but the drowsiness soon returned. She fiddled with her phone. Adrian's gaze sharpened. He stared at Chloe, who clasped her hands together in a pleading gesture. "Chloe," he said calmly. Chloe jumped, her eyes wide. "Please answer this question." Silence. Bella. Bella was dreaming. Adrien was leaning close, his face inches from hers. She could almost feel his breath on her skin. Just as their lips were about to touch, he vanished. She woke with a start. Adrien looked at her, a fleeting smile crossing his face as he noticed the drool on her cheek. Bella rubbed her eyes, looking at Chloe, who had slumped back in her seat. "What happened?" she whispered. "When are you going to bag Sterling?" Chloe mumbled. Bella paused, glancing at Adrien. She'd left the self-criticism in his office before class. Had he read it? He seemed to sense her gaze, looking up to meet her eyes. Bella's stomach fluttered. The rest of the lecture was a blur. Chloe had plans after class. Bella wandered around campus, stopping at the convenience store to buy lollipops. She was unwrapping one when she saw Adrien walking towards her. She froze, turning away, her head ducked low. "Bella Harper." She looked up, her eyes darting nervously. "Professor Sterling," she mumbled. Adrien's gaze was intense. "Yes?" Bella's face crumpled. She tried to walk past him, but his voice stopped her. The self-criticism. She hung her head. "Professor Sterling, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. When I see you, Do you even know what love is?" Adrien's voice was low. Bella's heart pounded. She bit her lip. "You're too young." "Too young?" Bella looked up, indignant. "Professor Sterling, I'm 23. I graduate next year." Adrien's gaze lingered on her face. The implication was clear. The air crackled between them. Bella blushed under his intense scrutiny. He looked away. "I don't want to see this happen again." 10,000 words. Before Bella could react, he was gone. She stared after him, her face pale. The older students ignored her, the younger ones didn't want her, and now the professors were rejecting her too. "You're giving up? Just like that?" Chloe stared at Bella, incredulous. "What else can I do? I have a 10,000-word self-criticism to write." Bella mumbled, staring into her iced coffee. "No way. He's too good to pass up. He's only here for a year, then he's going back to be the associate director at City General, the best hospital in town." And? Bella's heart was numb. She was focusing on her studies, her thesis, her job search. "Bella, if you snag him, his connections, his status, it would be huge for your career." "He's not interested. You have to be persistent. Don't give up." Chloe made a fist-pumping gesture. In class, Bella sat in the front row, directly in Adrien's line of sight. He lectured on the human anatomy, his voice deep and clear, patiently answering every question. He felt her gaze and looked up, meeting her eyes. She smiled, a dazzling, captivating smile. He paused, then continued his lecture as if nothing had happened. After class, as the other students filed out, Bella approached the podium, her notebook open. "Professor Sterling, I don't understand this part." Adrien's eyes narrowed slightly. "Come to my office." In his office, Adrien reviewed her notes, making annotations with his pen. "There, I've explained it. You can go." He closed the notebook and pushed it towards her. That was it? She hadn't even asked her real questions. "Professor Sterling, I still don't understand." She opened the notebook, pointing at a random passage. Adrien looked at the page. Just this part? Yes. He picked up his phone. Professor Linton, I have a student struggling with literary comprehension. Would you be available to tutor her? Bella stared at him, dumbfounded. He hung up. Professor Linton can't leave his office. Go see him. I've already spoken to him. Bella's eyes pleaded with him. Professor Sterling, why won't you accept me? It seems your literary skills are truly lacking. Go on. Don't keep Professor Linton waiting. He frowned. Bella's eyelashes fluttered. She bit her lip, her eyes welling up. Professor Sterling, tears spilled down her cheeks. Adrian's gaze softened as he watched the tears roll down her face. His brow furrowed. Bella hadn't meant to cry, but suddenly, all the frustration, the rejection, the loneliness poured out of her. You cried? In front of him? Chloe's eyes were wide. Yes. What did he do? Nothing. He just told me to go. Bella's voice was muffled. He didn't even try to comfort you? He's heartless. Chloe paced the dorm room. Chloe, I think I should give up. He rejected me the first time and now this. No. Maybe he didn't reject you outright because he's starting to like you. Think positive. Bella lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. A call from home sent Bella rushing out of the dorm. As she stepped outside, a bolt of lightning cracked across the sky, followed by a rumble of thunder. Annoyed, Bella started running towards the campus gates. A fine rain began to fall, turning into a steady downpour. She reached the gates, taking shelter under the awning. The rain showed no signs of stopping. She tentatively stepped out, then quickly retreated from the cold spray. Footsteps behind her. She turned to see Adrien walking towards her, an umbrella shielding him from the rain. He looked surprised to see her. He glanced at his watch. It was 8 o'clock. What are you doing here? Going home, Bella mumbled. Adrien frowned. You won't find a cab in this weather. Bella looked down, acutely aware of his presence so close to her. Professor Sterling, she began hesitantly. Wait here. I'll get you a cab. He stepped out into the rain. Bella stood there, watching him. Suddenly, she called out, Adrien. I like you. Be my boyfriend. And she ran after him into the rain. Are you crazy? He caught her hand, pulling her under the umbrella, his brow furrowed. Rain dripped from Bella's face. She looked up at him, suddenly self-conscious. Is this all you think about? His voice was low, not unkind. She bit her lip, her eyes pleading. He took her wrist and led her away. Where are we going? She asked, trying to pull back. He didn't answer, his grip firm. A black car pulled up. Get in, Adrien said, opening the door. Bella hesitated. Adrien's lips curved into a slight smile. Scared? Of course not, she retorted instantly. He raised an eyebrow. I'm soaked. I don't mind. He gently pushed her into the car and closed the door. He put his umbrella in the back and got into the driver's seat. Where to? He asked as he started the car. Just drop me at the bus stop up ahead, Bella said quickly. She didn't want him to see how drenched she was, and besides, her parents would interrogate her if a strange man brought her home this late. The buses have stopped running, he said, his eyes on the road. I'll get a taxi. I can take you home. No. Why not? Adrien asked, surprised. My parents, if they see me coming home with a strange man this late, she mumbled. Strange man? He pulled over, turning to look at her. Yes. She nodded emphatically. Aren't I your boyfriend? Hardly a stranger. And your professor, no less. His voice was amused. Bella's heart pounded. Is there a problem with that? He asked, a smile playing on his lips. Professor Sterling, is that true? What you said, she asked, her voice barely a whisper. What do you think? Bella blushed, looking down. Adrian's gaze lingered on her flushed cheeks. Her phone rang. Mom, I'm on my way home. Bella, it's raining. Don't bother coming back tonight. What? Before Bella could ask anything else, her mother hung up. She rolled her eyes. Still want to go home? Adrien asked softly. No. Adrien started the car again. A few minutes later, Bella asked, where are we going? Home. Oh. Then it hit her. Home? Whose home? He wasn't taking her to her home. He was taking her to his. They'd just become a couple, and he was already taking her home. Professor Sterling, I have homework. I need to go back to campus, she mumbled. Homework? I didn't assign any. His lips twitched. Literature. Did you see Professor Linton? Bella was silent. She hadn't, but she'd run into him in the hallway the next day, and he'd dragged her into his office and given her a test, which she'd failed miserably. Now, she had daily tutoring sessions with him. Literature is important, Bella. It informs medical practice. His voice was a soothing murmur, and Bella's eyelids grew heavy. She leaned against the car door, her eyes closing. She drifted off to sleep. She woke up stiff and sore, realizing she was still in the car, a jacket draped over her. She sat up and looked over. Adrien was asleep in the driver's seat. She looked out the window. The sky was beginning to lighten. She turned back to Adrien, her hand reaching out to gently touch his face. It still felt surreal. Adrian Sterling, her boyfriend. She gazed at him, lost in thought, then leaned closer, about to kiss him, when his eyes flickered open. Bella froze, her eyes wide. She started to pull back, but Adrian's hand was on her back, drawing her closer. His breath warmed her skin. His lips touched hers, and fireworks exploded in her mind. She couldn't breathe. His hand held hers captive. She couldn't push him away. After a long moment, he released her, his gaze lingering on her flushed face. He gently kissed her forehead. He'd been foolish, letting his guard down, letting her, and that meddling niece of his, get under his skin. It's still early. Go back to sleep. His voice was gentle. Bella scrambled out of the car, her heart racing. Back in the dorm, Chloe was gone. Bella crawled into bed, the lingering taste of mint on her lips. She woke up feeling feverish and weak. The door opened. Bella, you're still in bed? You're going to be late for class. Chloe stopped, noticing Bella's flushed cheeks. She felt her forehead. You're burning up. What time is it? Past 8. Chloe poured her a glass of water and fetched some medicine. Here, take this. You should stay in bed. I'll go to class and tell Professor Sterling you're sick. Whose class is it? Sterling's. Bella sat up. What are you doing? I'm going to class. Bella, be sensible. It's just one class. Chloe pushed her back down and covered her with the blanket. But don't even think about showing up looking all pathetic so he'll feel sorry for you. It won't work. Just rest. It's not. No buts. Rest. Chloe glared at her and left. In class, Adrien glanced towards the back, noticing Chloe sitting alone. He paused, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. After class, he stopped Chloe. Come to my office. In his office, Chloe slumped in the chair opposite his desk, watching him make notes on some papers. Uncle Adrien, what's up? Where's your friend? The one who's always with you. Who? You know who. He looked up at her. Uncle Adrien, I have lots of friends. Be specific. Chloe, your allowance this month. Adrien's voice was laced with amusement. You wouldn't. Adrien's lips twitched. Fine, fine. Bella's sick. High fever. She's in bed. Adrien's face became serious. Why didn't you take her to the hospital? Uncle Adrien, it's just a fever. I gave her medicine. Adrien looked at Chloe, then stood up. Take me to her. If she's seriously ill, we're going to the hospital. Chloe's eyes widened. Uncle Adrien, you're acting different. Different how? You and Bella, she looked at him, a question in her eyes. Are you? Adrien cut her off. Call her Aunt Bella from now on. He walked out, leaving Chloe staring after him, speechless. Bella woke up to see Adrien sitting by her bed. She closed her eyes, then opened them again. He was still there. This is a very realistic dream, she murmured. Silly, it's not a dream. My uncle's here to see you. Chloe's voice chirped. Bella stared at Adrien. Uncle? Bella, let me introduce you. Professor Sterling is my uncle. Chloe beamed. Bella's mind reeled. Adrien looked at her with a mixture of tenderness and amusement. He touched her forehead. How are you feeling? Bella was still trying to process this information. Adrien chuckled, stroking her hair. Bella. Chloe, are you serious? He's really your uncle? She's not lying. Adrien's gaze was fixed on Bella. He gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her face. His voice was low and serious. Will you be my girlfriend? My niece-in-law? Bella was speechless. He'd made up his mind when he kissed her that morning. He was a man used to taking charge. Do I have a choice? She finally asked. Of course. But I like you, she whispered. Adrien's smile widened. He couldn't help but think how utterly adorable she was. Chloe had discreetly disappeared. If Bella knew Chloe was the reason all those cute undergrads had suddenly become unavailable, she'd be furious. But hey, Chloe thought, her matchmaking skills were on point. Adrien and Bella? Perfect. A year later, Adrien left the university to become the associate director at City General. Bella was finishing her thesis and starting her internship. One day, early in her internship, Adrien bundled her into his car. Where are we going? Bella asked, bewildered. She'd barely started her adult life and he was already rushing her towards marriage? Adrien grinned. Weren't you in a hurry when you were chasing me? That was different. I needed help with my thesis and my job, she mumbled. I'm just making sure you don't run away, Adrien teased. Bella's heart warmed. This man, who had become such an essential part of her life, was here to stay, through thick and thin. She smiled. Soon, she'd have 2 new titles, Mrs. Sterling, and Mom. The end.